package maintenance team meeting for June 2nd, 2020. We will follow the agenda as outlined in the issue that was opened in the repository. But before we get started, let us see if we have any announcements that people would like to share. It sounds like not, but I'm just posting in the chat the link for people to add themselves to the agenda's attendees. If you can, that would be good. Okay, we'll move on to the issues which are tagged for the agenda then. So the first one is Node Fetch is looking for help, number 360. Let's just see who opened that one. That was John a few weeks ago. There's some discussion. I see, Owen, you commented on that one. Is there anything in particular we should discuss this week?
So, yeah, I think there's probably some overlap between, there's probably some overlap between a couple of these topics for this week. So in addition to Node Fetch, there's also Axios. Both might have different opportunities for support, because I know part of it is making sure we can reach maintainers of the actual repository or the package in some capacity. But I think between those two projects, the governance models that we've been working on, improved documentation, Collab Summit, I'm wondering if there's maybe like a broader umbrella, like could these projects be additional pilots along with Express? Should we just say, hey, check out our new table of contents and our governance docs and come to Collab Summit, rather than just kind of spot treat? I wonder if there's maybe a higher level of support that we can pull them in, that they can then kind of like follow some breadcrumbs at least, so they can do something. Well, maybe we'll work on something higher level through Collab Summit. So maybe that additional context is a good way to look at Node Fetch. But anyway, those, I think they're intertwined. Maybe I'm wrong, but happy to have the discussion either way.
Right. And I think our discussion last time was like finding, with what seemed to work on the Express side was working with, a lead maintainer who wanted to help grow collaboratorship. And the first step is kind of finding who that might be in the different projects, right?
Yeah, I think it originally started with the Axios outreach, where collaborators on the project were trying to triage and assist, and they opened an issue, and we replied, so like, hey, yeah, if you can get the owner involved, then there's probably a better chance to provide some direct, meaningful help. I think it was at that time we established that there's probably only so much we can do outside of docs if the maintainer isn't actually involved. So maybe in light of not having a maintainer, we can say, hey, go check out our docs, give us some feedback. If there is a maintainer, maybe that's a way to bring them into the same pilot program that Express had. Maybe that gets some Collab Summit or something like that. I don't know if that's a path or not. But it seems like there's two ways to help. If you're a maintainer and you actually have admin access, you could probably actually implement changes that we recommend. If you're just a collaborator, you can maybe forward those, but you might not be in a position to do more than just advocate. But probably we can help either way with just links. Anyway, yeah. So I guess in the case of Node Fetch, I can't remember if it was, I think it was another collaborator, so I'm not sure. I mean, I guess this is just an opportunity, is there like maybe, not to dilute it down to a script, but like a talking point script, but if more collaborators come, is there maybe something we want to write down somewhere like, hey, we definitely want package maintainers to come and get involved. Just know that, if you're an owner, then, we maybe help you with this, and this. Otherwise, here's X, Y, and Z. Maybe that goes in the table of contents. Maybe the
Right.
read, I don't know. Maybe I can open an issue and we can discuss next time, like, how do we help when people come from different levels of collaboration to the project in question.
Okay.
So
And I see that
do
there
we
was,
want to
sorry, go
reach
ahead.
out? So do we want to reach out to node.js? They seem to have had some people volunteer. Do you want to reach out and just say, look, we're here if you need us?
I think Wesley responded and says they're working on a session at the Collab Summit and said, hey, if some people could from Node.fetch would try and attend, that would be a good next step.
Yeah, it's in between now and then if we have actual I guess it's Collab Summit. I don't know if it should be limited to maintainers, but in terms of being able to impact things. But yeah, I guess it's just more or less how do we, do we have a policy? Because obviously once Collab Summit's over, this could come up again. So,
Yep. Yeah, I think longer term that, having
Mhm.
a more like, here's the kind of constraints that apply, right?
Mhm.
Is kind of what we're talking would make sense.
Yeah, it's almost like a different kind of support level, not in the package JSON, but at the project. I guess maybe it falls under, maybe not governance models, but governance of this group in general. Like, what can't we do with with whatever resources the project makes available. But maybe it's just right for an issue that I could open and maybe try and string these together. Not to add another issue to another string of issues, but maybe this can be the one that binds them all together, so to speak. It basically could just be like, support policies for the working group, and how do we want to, and these examples could be used to start that conversation.
Okay. I'm just making a note here. It's basically saying you're going to open an issue to capture some of the discussion in these two, right?
Yeah, and maybe tie that in with some of the recent documentation work. So at least I'll open the issue, kind of summarize, what we just talked about, say that we're at least trying to work through documentation at Collab Summit. But, maybe there could be some more that we could discuss on it. And then I could at least link back to those other issues like, hey, we're in the process. If you want to help shape the process of how package maintenance team can help package your situation, come contribute to this issue.
Yep, makes sense. Okay, so I guess then moving on to the next issue, doc issues 309 governance models, which I know you also put a fair amount of work in as well.
Yeah, so that is, in basically that kind of first draft state. I have another interesting open source project. I'm not sure if any of you are familiar with Rome.js from the original creator of Babel, but they have a good governance doc. So I was going to take a look at that and see if there's any additional material that would be worth putting into that. But yeah, at this point, that's just basically open. That issue is open for feedback and suggestions. But yeah,
sorry, it's definitely been on my list. I just haven't managed to get to it.
I think it'd be good to, if it's something that we can maybe share or present for Collab Summit. So, whatever that timeline is.
Yeah, that would be a good topic where, we could present and get some feedback from a broader group.
Yeah, bring that issue of how can we help, plus, how can we help short term, well, here's documentation. How can we help long term? That's why we're here at Collab Summit.
Right.
So, so yeah, yeah, I'd say, you know, that's useful for Collab Summit. Maybe it could be linked into the Collab Summit docs if we, you know, want that or not. Just because I was taking a look, not to jump ahead, but I was taking a look at the Collab Summit docs and they look good. So, you know, I don't know, you know, if we want to piggyback on that further, but we can wait till we talk more about that.
Okay, well, that leads fairly nicely into the next issue, which is 335 Collab Summit session. So I think, Glenn, you were working on that?
Yeah, so I wrote up some stuff and I think I've got everyone here. Some of us didn't have, I got Dominicus, Andrew. If Beth is not on there, it's because she didn't have an email address for me to put it to. So if we put them in chat, I'll add you to the email list. Owen, yeah, Owen's on there. And anyone on there can add anybody else, I think, to in the. So I have a draft up. I'll be adding to it, but as I've talked previously, this may change a bit depending upon developments that are going on at my place of work. I maybe I'd have more people involved. So I also contacted Jury and said, how long should this be? And they said they want more time for talks and interaction than actual us standing there talking. So I think if we just have like 10 or 15 minutes and open up the floor, we should be good. And I think that we have plenty of material for 10 or 15, and I typed up enough. I think we're going to have to start emphasizing the fact that we're doing these things, but hey, what's more crucial is once we have a framework is how do we get people involved? And it's not just writing code. From what we're seeing on Express, it's like they need almost a full-time scrum master, almost like just to handle all the stuff coming in and organize the people. And John Church is kind of doing that as well on the calls. So it is more than just code. It is just actual involvement and long-term collaboration, which is what I'm highlighting in the document I've shared on Google Docs. So engagement, and then secondly, not just code. There is more to being involved than just churning out code to keep an ecosystem healthy. What we're seeing is the triages are making quite a big impact, just answering replies, being there so that one or two maintainers don't get burned out. And as we just saw in the node fetch one, the main maintainer just said, I'm no longer going to be working in this area full time and I can't support it, and that sort of thing. So I think we've covered the correct areas there. Rue, you're also welcome to come and edit my document.
You want to just paste the link in the chat to your doc again?
Yeah. I'm going to do a share.
Yeah, I can paste the link. I got it.
Yeah, hang on. Oh, you got it. Okay.
But you can share. I just had I had it open, so I figured I could.
Yeah. Hang on. Copy link.
Oh, that's the wrong one.
I was thinking, I opened it. It's like, wait a sec. Okay, right.
what am I doing here?
I just typed one in. I think that was it. That should allow everyone to edit it.
There it is.
Yeah, it's not full and complete. I just got it started, but I'll be going back in there this weekend. As I said, I've concentrated on other aspects which I think are equally important to the sort of endeavor we're pushing at my work.
Even like, Owen had mentioned the governance as like, maybe we add that in here somewhere as a.
Yeah, put a section in.
Like we might have a section which is like specific to that, or a section which is like open discussion topics. Like this sounds, yes. This kind of seems like here's the part where you want to talk, but then it would be nice to have a list of here's what we'd like to talk with the larger audience about.
Yeah, I took a brief look, and yeah, I definitely like the where it's going. Yeah, so I could definitely. Well, I was thinking I can make that issue about how, so we can start the conversation about how this group can help teams like we were just talking about, and then I can add some additional thoughts around governance models and all that, and then drop that as a comment in the doc, so we can keep all those things circulating. So yeah, I can definitely add some more comments around that this weekend to keep the conversation going and try and tie some of these issues together so they kind of you can look at them all in one place.
Yeah, so just put a title in and I'll go and write stuff under it. And if we don't like it, we'll change it. I always find it easier to change things rather than just look at a blank page and go, well, it would be there if we'd thought about it.
Yep.
Like it's much easier to criticize something than nothing. Like when I write nothing, it's never wrong.
No.
I see Dominicus is looking in very deep thought at the screen there because he's reading it.
Do you have any concern with me putting the link to this into the minutes?
No.
Okay.
I don't. I
will do that.
Yeah, I think it's protected, so you'll just have to invite as people, so it shouldn't be too much of a hassle.
Sounds good. Okay, anything more we want to talk about that one before we move on?
Very slightly off topic. Is there a schedule for the Collab Summit, at least the opening hours, if you will, anywhere? Because, yeah, time zone will be likely an issue for me, but just want to check it out.
Yeah, I'm kind of involved in the Collab Summit organization. I think it's starting at 9 a.m. Central Time. So it goes from, it's kind of like basically they're following the same time zone as the conference. So yeah. So you got to do the conversion. I don't know what the time zone you are, but yeah.
But there's no schedule yet, I don't think, like in terms of when the sessions are or anything.
Nope. Yeah, it's still working on it.
Okay, any other questions before we move on to the next one? Okay, so the next one was issue 309 doc table of contents. That's landed now. Actually, that's interesting. It says 333 later on, so I think it's, anyway, 333 appears to have landed.
Yeah, I can remove the label from that.
I think it'll now that it's closed, it just won't show up anymore. You don't necessarily need to remove it. So.
Oh, the 333 was linked to an issue, so there was no issue to close. I'm not sure if that matters. It was spun off.
I see. No. Okay, yeah. So we should close that issue then. Yes. Okay, got it. Yep. If you can either close the issue or remove the tag, depending on which is the right answer.
Yeah, I'll remove the tag since 333 was spun off of 309, but 309 is the governance model. So keep that. Okay, so I'll remove the tag off the PR and keep governance models on the list. Okay.
Sounds good. The next one is dependence tooling 327.
Okay.
Yep.
I can go on this. Me and Beth have been working on this for the past couple of weeks. We've been coming up with an initial flow, which I'll paste the PR into the chat. So we're trying to find consensus on the full flow through for the testing tool for dependence. In parallel, we've also been working on the initial prototype, and I've got the initial prototype to a stage now where if we have time at the end of this meeting, I could maybe play it back. If not, I'll have a PR open tomorrow if anyone wants to have a look. So that should be on the PKG.js Wibby repo.
Sounds good.
Excellent.
Do you want to, has there been enough interaction in terms of the flow that you think we have consensus, or is there something we should discuss in this meeting on that front?
Have you got anything to add on that, Beth? Or
I think we're still struggling between whether we're going to make it run on forks or not forks. But I think the last suggestion was, for now, we will just hard code the full path to the repository. So it doesn't matter whether it's a fork or a the actual repo itself. It opens a PR on. So for now, we're testing it on like our own forks of a repo. So I've forked Malta and Express. I can test it with those, because the tool at the moment needs to have push access to push a branch to the repo. So when we're running it locally, it works fine, but we may have some challenges about how we would run it as a service or against things that we don't necessarily have push rights to.
Okay, but I think being able to run it either against a fork or the original project is what we're going to end up wanting in the long run. So it sounds like that what you've got at least is not preventing that, right?
What I've got at the moment looks like it can be easily modified, so it can run against a fork or a normal repo. So it could default to try and push to the repo and then check if it's got admin or write access, and then go, oh wait, I haven't got admin or write access. Let's create a fork and push to there. So I can incorporate that into the tool itself.
But it requires, like, I guess, you know, if a project had opted in, it's going to require them to give admin access to the repo versus just having a PR being opened.
Potentially. I assume even if they opted in, you could still push to the fork as long as the fork was kept updated.
Okay, you're talking about pushing to, like, I was thinking the model was we're creating a repo, like a PR against a repo. And what we were talking about was whether that PR would go against the main repo or a fork of the repo.
So I think we decided at one point we were actually just going to push the branch and not create the PR, because the PR would add extra, it would just clutter up the repo, because these PRs would be referencing a specific commit in a repo. So they're never intended to actually be merged in.
So
right.
The problem with just pushing a branch and not opening the pull request is that some CI systems do not run off branches. Jenkins is horrible. If you want to, I'm looking forward to the next step of using this not just for open source. That's where my thinking. I suppose there's not many public open source modules using Jenkins in the Node ecosystem when there's Travis around. So I think that may just be another option there. But also having a pull request open means that if there's an option, if it's configurable, I think it's best, because you might also want to open up the pull request simply because you will need to discuss it with the maintainer. You know, you open up a space where you can talk about code, where you can have a code review, because if you just open up a pull request with the breaking changes of your next release, you probably want to push some commits on top of that to fix these breaking changes, to address, to update the code, right? And that's where a pull request is handy.
I also just worried about, like, people are not, I doubt that maintainers are going to want to give away admin access.
I guess for the other tools that depend upon, that's what you have to do. You have to grant it permission to push a branch to a repo.
So depend upon requires that push a branch to the repo. I guess not to the main branch though.
Yeah, it pushes. If I remember correctly, it pushes a new branch and then runs Travis in your own CI. And the reason it does that is so it can access all of the credentials that you might have built into Travis. Some like tokens are purposely not available via PR. Otherwise, you could put PR in and just echo it out.
Sure. I guess if there's some past evidence of, like, you know, people accepting that that's giving that privilege out is okay, maybe that is more realistic. Did Greenkeeper do the same thing?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, renovate does. You have to give it permissions and
Yeah,
access.
Oh, if you install things as an application, then they will do that. But that means that, so this is a weird case. It's the opposite of the renovate, right? The renovate operates on your repository for you, whereas in this case, the Wibi would be operating on somebody else's repository in the name of you, which it will be an interesting application to configure on GitHub if it becomes a GitHub application. But I'm not sure that this does need to be addressed right now, because it is a good point that you cannot open a branch if you don't have push access, right? If you don't have access to push that branch. But in that case, yes, you do need to work off of a fork. And I think that's fine. Right?
Yeah, no, I think I'm less worried if we have other existing solutions like Dependabot with it's not like just any admin access, it's just the access to be able to push a branch and nothing more than that, I assume.
Yeah, but if you're granting access to someone to push a branch, then if Wibi works as a service, you also need to grant access not to the all of Wibi potentially everywhere, but you want to grant access to specific users, to specific dependencies that you're
Right.
testing against, not all of it. So there's a bit that extra step.
Right, yeah, agreed. You're not anybody using Wibi, but it just the ones you've opted in for these modules. Yeah, so that'll be another interesting aspect. Okay, so I mean, we started on because there was like any issues in the flow that needed more discussion. Any other things like that we should talk through?
I think that covers it. We've got some next steps to continue with, so we're not blocked on anything. So.
Okay, so let's move on, and we can, if we have time, hopefully doing a demo at the end would be good. Sorry, just spinning my mouse.
I know I left a dump of long text in there. Do we want to schedule a deep dive or anything in terms, or do we wait for more, or did that make sense?
I think maybe in the future. I was hoping Wes would come back, but he's unavailable. I thought he'd be here today and we could chat about it, but maybe next time, if we haven't heard anything by maybe 2 weeks, the next package maintenance meeting, we spin out a breakout.
Okay, cool. Looking forward to the podcast. Yeah. Excited.
Okay, PKGS org for W supported tooling, workgroup supported tooling, that's 271. I think on this one, we're really just waiting for some. Okay, where's the PR? Sorry, that was, I haven't seen any notifications recently on 338. So I guess LJ and Dominica still have some comments. I think I've addressed the comments or not. I guess, Dominica, you'd asked about whether we could just put things in a GitHub repo.
Yeah, I think that was the discussion, because we had sort of the opposite discussion in some other threads.
Yeah.
I don't mind. I think, like I said, just having that code of conduct in D at the root of the repo, it's a statement, a much better statement than the default GitHub behavior. where when you open up an issue, there's a small pop-up somewhere with a couple of links.
Right.
So yeah, so if we're saying that it needs to be in there, then it needs to be in there. I have no objections, just wanted to clarify that, because we had the kind of an opposite discussion elsewhere.
Right. I think in my mind that does make sense. Like the code of conduct could just be a single line that says, here's the link to our full code of conduct in the .github. But from my perspective, not having it in the repo doesn't seem discoverable enough. And because it'll be that link, there really won't be any maintenance to it, right? So it's a one-time addition. And I think the license, pretty much the same thing would be in my mind as well.
Yeah, the license, you mean the list of authors?
Well, the license.md. Because that was the two things. The Alliance-based software president will have a license and the code of conduct, right? I think the authors one was a separate one, which we were having that conversation, but I don't think that, did we get that specific in here?
No, I don't think it's covered in here.
Okay. So in that case, we don't need to figure that one out. I forget what the final one was, but
yeah, the only gotcha is that the license needs to define who owns the copyright, which is sort of, but that's another thread, and I think that's I think we're getting to some conclusions there in 368. I just approved this. So
okay, so basically, if 338 looks good to you, you know, I think this is ready to propose to the TSC as what this group would like in terms of the governance. Does that jive with everybody? Because I think if so, that's the next step to moving the repo, separate repo as part of the Node.js org forward.
Yeah, no objections here. That seems like the right thing.
Okay, well, I'll take that as a +1 to move forward on that then. We'll make this, so the next step, I'm just going to take a minute. It seems like we have agreement on 338. TSC, TSC/com. Okay, so we'll get that started. The next one is next steps on support levels for package.json. The next step we're working on there is to get the support tool to the MVP state, so we can then start promoting and asking people, maintainers, to put that in. We did have a meeting, I forget, late last week anyway, probably Thursday. I think we have agreement on just a couple things that I'm going to look at and then hopefully get that landed. And so, you know, I'm just going to say hope to get in next week or so, and then we can about, you know, how to promote. Actually might be good to get it done before the summit if we can. Anything else people want to bring up on that one? There is a prototype there in the PRs if you want to go try it out, and there's some unit tests you could look at to see what it's currently validating and doing. But and that takes us to the end of the tagged issues. So at this point, I'd suggest we use the rest of the time for Andrew and Bethany to give us a bit of a demo, if that makes sense. Okay, sounds like that.
Cool.
Yep.
Okay, I'll see if I can share my screen, see if we can get this right. So can you all see the minutes?
I don't see your screen quite. Oh, now I can. Yeah.
Yeah, we do.
Nice. Cool. Okay. So to run the tool, you assume that you're in the top level of the parent package. So my parent package is something called I should pass. So I've got this, and I have a child dependent that I can also find with the dependents tool, which nice and quickly, hopefully. Cool. So yeah, my child's package is called Do You Pass, both from GitHub. And then to use the Wibby tool, all you need is the URL to your child package. So you run that with Wibby --test, and then the URL to your child package. This should, so it grabs your local package name from the package JSON in your current directory. It finds the org and the repo of the child dependency. It creates the patch, which will be then applied onto the child package JSON. And that will point to a specific commit head or tag or anything. At the moment, it's pointed to the commit that's on master for this repo. And then it will create a commit and push that to the following link, which then outputs. Go to this. Should see my version's been changed. Cool. Yeah, so the version's been changed to point to the latest commit on the I should pass repo. CI also runs on this because I've set it up to run on push branches. So this was a breaking change, so it should fail my CI. Awesome. Yeah. So that's about it so far. So,
okay, so
yeah.
that and if you had multiple dependents, would it go through and do those multiple?
So the initial,
or how far
the initial
along is it?
prototype doesn't do that. It only takes the single URL. In theory, we're in the flow. We're trying to define something called a Wibby JSON, which should host all the names of your dependents, and then it would loop through that JSON file and open the PRs on each one.
Okay. And I guess there's also work around figuring out whether the testing passed or failed, right?
Yeah, so that would be a separate one, a separate thing called, get the Wibby help up. That's called Wibby result, which would be get the result of your CI runs, and it would probably just use the URL that's posted below. So the URL that's in changes push to attributes do pass blob with that would be, it would use that URL that would be stored in the Wibby JSON, I think we decided, and then or into .wibby results or something, and then that Wibby ---- result would run through each of them, trying to get the status of the CI run.
Okay, so you would run a test --test and then a -- result.
Yeah, because you don't want your CLI tool to just be hanging around waiting for all your CI runs to happen, because sometimes CLI runs might take half an hour or so. So it'd be easier to just do a Wibby ---- result to try and get the result of this CI run separately.
Does it then tell you if you're not ready yet?
It should, in theory, it should do.
Okay.
So Wibby ---- sorry.
Go ahead.
Go on.
Oh, I think we talked about maybe having like a log file for each run, and that stores all of the links, like the changes pushed to the link that Andrew's got there. And then when we run result, it goes through all of the links. So it could be multiple, it could be individual, and then just outputs like a table to the screen saying CI run passed on this run or is still pending using the Travis or the GitHub checks API.
Yeah, I'm thinking I could see, like if I'm setting up a job, I might want something to just triggers the tests, wait till everything's finished, and then reports green or red, right? So how would you do that with these commands?
I'm assuming when you run Wibby result and it hasn't finished, it will tell you it hasn't finished. So could you not just keep repeatedly run Wibby result?
I think,
Or have a Wibby wait or something.
Yeah, I think you'd want at least an option that says, instead of just always finishing, like you could have dash dash result dash dash wait or something.
I'd question how many people would want that running in like a CI place. Like I can certainly imagine on Travis or GitHub Actions, you won't want to use up your allowance with a long running job that's taking the time it takes is dependent on all of your other packages CI runs. So if they're backlogged, you're going to backlog even more.
Yeah, I just don't, I also don't know that I'd want to be constantly having to rerun it.
There's probably a way to set up some triggers somewhere there.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe. I think it's possible to solve in one way or another.
Yeah, I think we just want to come up with a flow that allows people to not have to just keep retrying on their own, because
I mean, you could like do a scheduled check or something as a separate job somewhere. So yeah, one cool place to store the URLs could be Git notes, because that is associated with a commit. This is something that semantic release does as well. It adds a Git notes on tags for pre-releases to record the pre-release status, which is nice because it lives in the repo. It's kind of obscure, the API itself, and sometimes annoying to use, and it's sometimes hard to understand because it behaves slightly differently than Git itself when you're pushing commits. But overall, it's a nice place to store things that are related to commits, which is beyond GitHub's CI status API even, because you can like, do that in GitLab and everywhere else.
you're thinking that would be a way to store extra data on the commit that was being used to do the test, right?
Yeah. And that way you have the link back to the runs that you already performed, and then you can read from that. And so it's your state essentially, right? And that way you can also, you know, which things to look through when you need to check, or if you need to rerun something, and it could keep quite a bit of metadata. So rather than have a with results JSON or something like that.
Would that be on the commits locally on your machine, or would it be?
You can push it into the repo. You can push it into the remote.
And I guess if you can push a branch, then you can easily push updates, right?
Because is the vision of something like this, because I guess I could, in my mind, something like this for like, say, the Express team, right? Maybe they have a GitHub action. So every time a PR lands into master, it could trigger a job like this that, you know, picks 3 or 4 of their identified dependencies and, you know, patches the latest commit from master onto the version in that project's package JSON and runs those. But yeah, I think I mean, I guess there is that sense of, you know, how long would it take and what would it cost? But I think having it run like a process, like it would be like another step of your CI is maybe does seem intuitive, I guess, in the new world of CI/CD, especially with GitHub Actions, because then you get like the nice status checks, and you know, you could choose to ignore it, but almost like a dependabot in a way, you know. Or you could have like, you know, some sort of alternate command that you could, if you're on your local machine, you want to rerun it. But I think having it, the option to have it run as a process that flows nicely through like a CI process is pretty handy.
Did we come to an agreement in the flow around having it as a CI and CLI or did we decide just for CLI?
I mean, like first, it's I could see adding this as a dev dependency to a project, and then as part of that project's build pipeline, they could say run dependent, run dependence package with my config against, what I consider to be the most consumed, or what I consider to be the projects that consume my project the most, and then do the normal flow. So still from a CLI perspective, like I could just run a bash command that runs the binary. So you could have both. I think the CLI is the right interface, but I think you'd see a lot of value being able to run that as a process in a CI pipeline.
Right. The use cases should cover the I want to run this as part of my CI, but delivering it through the CLI still can fit that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
One other quick question: does this use Yargs?
Yep. Both tools.
I was just curious because for the support, that's what we're using for command line parsing as well, and so it's probably good to have a little bit of commonality. So that's good. Any other questions on this?
I'd probably ask if anyone has time to read through the flow PR that I think is the one Andrew linked in the chat. Please do, and add some comments. Some of the things I haven't thought about properly enough yet, so I plan to get back to that when I've had time to think about some of it, but having some more input will probably be pretty good as well.
Is that the issue from the minutes? 192? Or sorry, 271. Sorry, sorry.
It's the last link Andrew sent in the chat in Zoom, the PKGJS Wibby.
Oh, I see it. Wibby pull. Okay, got it. Thank you. Yep, Wibby 1.
Okay, let me put that in the minutes here. Okay, anything else?
Thanks for the demo.
Yeah, thanks.
No problem.
Thank you.
Okay. I guess if that's it for today, we will call it. Thanks for everybody's time, and we'll talk to everybody in GitHub and in the next meeting.
Thanks.
Cool.
Stay
Bye.
safe. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.